Oh, okay.
You have to pay attention.
Thank you.
But you can also take it home and quiz them on it
Yeah,
and stuff. So that
I
you
was
have
trying
that
to read
copy.
my notes to go over it with
Yeah.
them.
No, that's like I said, but now you have that copy that you kind of just skim
Yeah.
through and say, what was this, what was this, what was
Thank
this?
you.
No, not a problem. It's just as easy to copy two or print two as it is one. All right, quick review of last week. Ellie, who fought in the French and Indian War? What? Not silly time. French and Indian War. One of it's in the name. France. Indians on Native American. England is the other country, and Native Americans fought for who? The French or the English? Or both? Both, right? So the French and Indian War, France versus England, Native Americans on both sides. Why is the French and Indian War important, Elijah? What does it cause England to put on the colonists?
Stamp Act.
But more, you're right, the Stamp Act, but what was it? It's a tax, and why did they put a tax on the colonists? Because of the French and Indian
Because
War.
they were in debt.
They were in debt and they needed money. What area was the French and Indian War fought around?
Great Lake.
The Great Lakes and in Europe as well. And what other place? One other place I'm looking for. The Great Lakes, and if you go north of the Great Lakes, you'll run into Canada. Let's see. What was the Boston Tea Party?
It's where these people dressed up as Indians and they dumped all the tea
Into the harbor, and it was the result of them being angry over what?
over the Stamp Act.
Over the Stamp Act, or just being taxed in general. Brooklyn, what was the Mayflower Compact?
Do a truce peace.
It is an agreement between the saints and the
Religion.
pilgrims and the non-religious groups, creating a set of what?
Peace.
Laws that they would live by. Let's see. Who is known as the father of the Constitution, Elijah? Not Thomas Jefferson.
James Madison.
James Madison. Why Madison?
Because he wrote most of it.
He wrote, didn't write most of it, but his notes and his information is where we get most of our information. Okay. What was the first form of government in the United States? It was the Articles of what? Anyone? Articles of Confederation, and it was a league of friendship, basically. What were the intolerable acts? There was 4 parts to it after the Boston Tea Party. Give me one. Not the Boston Massacre. They're going to close the Boston Harbor until the tea is paid for. They will force colonies to quarter soldiers, and they will. English officials can't be tried by crimes, and the Massachusetts Assembly has to be people loyal to the king and not the colony. Okay. So when we talk about the Constitution, that's kind of how we got to where we are, right? That gets us to the point of where we're getting into the Constitution. The Constitution is important because it's the rules of a game. Do you like to play board games?
Yeah.
Kind of. Do you want to know what the rules of the board game is before you play?
Yeah.
Or do you like people to say, no, that was the rule before we started, now that I'm losing, that's no longer the rule? Yeah, that's the rules. So that's what the Constitution is. The Constitution is the rules of the game. This is your rights. These are your freedoms. That's how the government works. It's all laid out. It's all specific. They can't change the rules in the middle of the game. Well, they shouldn't be supposed to. But anyway, so it's broken into 3 parts. The preamble. The preamble is just going to tell you what they're going to say. We, the people of the United States of America, in order for a more perfect union, teachers want you to memorize it. I never understood it. It's just telling you what they're going to do. It's telling you why they're doing what they're doing. The 7 articles are going to break down the government. Okay, they're gonna break down the government, they're gonna create the government, they're gonna create the presidency, the Congress, the court system, the relationships between the states. And then the 27 amendments are probably the most important, because that is your guaranteed rights or freedoms. Okay, these are things that you're guaranteed to do. So how many articles are there, Brooklyn? 7. How many amendments, Ellie? 27. And what is the first part of the Constitution? It's right up front, top line, preamble. So those are the 7. Or excuse me, those are the 3 main parts. Okay? Alright. Article 1. Article 1 is the creation of the legislative branch, which is Congress. Congress is going to be broken into 2 houses. What are the 2 houses, Elijah? Give me one. The upper house, which will be called what? The Senate. And the lower house? The House of Representatives. Very good. So when you are creating this, that is the one that they think is the most important, because it is the first article. Remember, what did they want to avoid? Who had all the power before? England, and not just England, who within England had all the power? The king. So they want to make sure that the power does not reside in a single person or entity. That's why Congress is done first, and it breaks down those things as it goes. The first house we'll talk about is the Senate. There are 2 senators from each state, making a total of how many? How many states times 2? 100 senators. So each state, California has 2, Rhode Island has 2, Texas has 2, Idaho has 2. Doesn't matter how big, doesn't matter how populated, does not matter. It is 2 per state. The 2 for us, Tammy Baldwin and Ron Johnson. Those are the 2 senators from the state of Wisconsin. Okay. There are in the Senate today, there are 2 major political parties, right? Republicans and Democrats, which I'm not going to go over much. That's for a much more in-depth class. How many Democrats are there out of the 100 in the Senate? Hey, come on in. Come on in, have a seat. 50. So if there's 50 Democrats, how many Republicans? 50. So how's the tie broke? What happens if it's 50-50?
The vice president.
The vice president would break the tie. We are just now going over Article 1 of the Constitution. So we're just breaking it down. I will recap it real quick for you. We've just talked about the 2 houses, the Senate and the House, and we're just breaking down the Senate. The 2 members of the Senate from Wisconsin are Tammy Baldwin and Ron Johnson. And we will go from there. There are 3 qualifications to be a senator. 3 qualifications to be in the U.S. Senate. You must be 30 years old. You must live in the state you represent. And you must be a citizen for 9 years. Okay? So 35. Citizen for 9 years, and must live in the state you represent. Citizenship in states vary from place to place. Some states, all you have to do is have a residency there. Some states you have to actually have resided in that state for a certain amount of time for it to count. That's why you see a lot of people that will go from, we'll take Mitt Romney, for example. He was in Massachusetts, but now he's the senator of Utah because he's able to transfer his citizenship to Utah rather quickly. Hillary Clinton went from Arkansas to New York because the residency things in New York were a lot more lenient than other states, so they could bounce back and forth. Senators serve for 6 years. So when they are elected, they serve for 6 years. 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years. 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years. For instance, in November, Ron Johnson will be up for re-election. Okay, I don't think Tammy Baldwin is up for re-election for another 4 years after that. So I think she was in the previous election. So 1/3 of the 100 senators are elected every 2 years. Okay, so let's see. How many senators are there total? 2 times 50. 2 times 5. 2, 4.
8, 10,
100. There are 100 senators. Who are the 2 from Wisconsin? Give me one.
Ron Johnson.
Okay, who's up for re-election this year?
Ron Johnson.
Ron Johnson. Who's the other one?
Tammy Baldwin.
Tammy Baldwin. What are the 3 qualifications to be in the Senate?
You have to be 30 years old.
Have to be 30 years old. Don't look so excited. You must live in the state, right? And the last one.
You must be there for 9 years.
Must be a citizen of the U.S. for 9 years. Okay? You must be a citizen of the United States for 9 years. All right. Let me see. Are you much more of a visual? Would it help if I wrote it down? Yes, no, don't really care. Just you're bored, leave me alone.
Yes. Sure, the third one.
Okay. The House of Representatives. House of Representatives, there are, anybody want to take a guess on how many members there are in the House?
8.
There are 8 from Wisconsin, but what are their total?
50.
50, a lot higher.
200.
200, guess? No clue?
No clue.
350, getting closer.
100.
350 is closer.
400.
There are 435 members in the U.S. House of Representatives. There are 8 from Wisconsin. How do we base representation in the House? Based on what?
How much population?
How many people you have. So what state would have the most?
Georgia?
Not Georgia. Not a bad guess, though.
California.
California would have the most. I believe the last time I looked, California had 53. And that could be off based because of the census that happened. So there are 435 members. And this is terrible. So like I said last week, take my artwork for... And those are not accurate, so don't hold me to those. So that's the districts. Let's just say that's the way Wisconsin is broken down. Okay? Wisconsin is broken down. That means everybody in this section of Wisconsin will vote for that person. They won't have a say in the other 7. They only have the say in the 1. And it's that way throughout the country. There are 435 districts across this country. Okay? All broken down. If you want to look, all you gotta do is go Google congressional map of the United States. It'll break it down. Like I said, there's 435 districts. Each district is represented by 1 person. Who is ours? Anybody know who our district or who represents this district? You don't have any idea, so don't answer. Well, let's guess. We're in a guessing mood. He won't get it. 5,
Mike,
4.
the bottom.
Mike Gallagher, not a bad guess, but wrong.
Glenn.
Glenn Grossman is the representative. Not a bad guess.
You said that right.
You didn't say that like that. You said this guy.
Oh, I said one.
Okay, either way, you were wrong. So, like I said, 435 members across the United States. This is where all money bills, all tax-related bills, any bill dealing with money is supposed to start at the House of Representatives. It is supposed to start in the House of Representatives because they think they are closer to the people. And the reason they think they're closer to the people is they only serve for 2 years. How long does the Senate serve for? 6. What percentage of the Senate is elected every 2 years?
1/3.
1/3. So how many is that? Out of 100, how many is it?
26.
So 2 years, 33, 33, and 34. Okay, so every 2 years, that's going to be the number of senators elected. Okay. The House, all 435 members are elected every 2 years. Every time we have an election, every 2 years that there is an election, we create a new Congress. Anyone want to take a guess on what number Congress we are on today?
50.
A lot higher.
150.
Lower.
100.
100 is higher, not by much though. Yes, sir.
97.
Nope, higher than 100.
130.
Lower.
120.
120 is close. We are on
115.
the 117th Congress. Okay? The 117th Congress. There are 3 qualifications to be a member of the House. You must be 25. You must live in the district you represent, not the state, but the district you represent. And you must be a citizen for 7 years. Okay? So, the House is 25, 7 years, live in your district. So, right, House is 25, 7, and live in the district. Senate is 39 years and live in the state. Okay? Questions? Awake?
I am.
Yes. Better be
House of
legitimate.
Representatives, can you just be 25?
You can just be 25. Matter of fact, you can be 24, run for an election, win the election, as long as you're sworn in at 25 years old, you're okay. Matter of fact, I think the guy from North Carolina, the guy in the wheelchair, what is his name, Katie? Cawthorne, thank you. He, I think, was just 25 this last election when he won.
Why is he in a wheelchair?
I didn't ask you. I don't know him that well.
You've never met him.
Exactly. Thank you for proving my point. So like I said, those 3 are Democrats. The other 4 or the other 5, are Republicans. What is the breakdown of the House of Representatives? Anyone know? Let me make sure I get my numbers right before I ask. How many Democrats are in the House?
3.
No, in the House. No, I mean the entire House of Representatives.
100.
So 30.
Oh, I know.
That's the breakdown. 222 Democrats, 212 Republicans, and 1 independent. I should have got their name, but I did not.
One is the one independent.
I didn't get his name or her name. I should have, but I didn't. I apologize. So who controls the House? Republicans or Democrats? You have a 50-50 shot.
I was gonna say the president, but okay.
No, it's not the president. Democrats. Who controls the Senate?
Republican.
No, it's a 50-50 tie, but who breaks the tie?
Democrats,
The Democrats, because
the vice president.
the vice president breaks the tie. So the Democrats control the House, they control the Senate, and they control the presidency, which we will get to later. So they control all three branches of government right now. Or two of the three branches of government right now.
That's sad.
Why? Remember, and I told you I'm going to argue with you no matter what you say. If you say it's white, I'm going to tell you it's black. Come on, I like a good argument.
Because they're evil?
Why? They want to help poor people? That's evil?
No, they just give them free money.
Well, okay, but some people can't help themselves.
Taxpayers, that taxpayers make.
So you're against helping people?
Well, some of these people just sit on their phones all day and don't do anything.
Stop crying.
Sort of.
Nope. Nothing illegal about being lazy.
Well.
There was. I got 3 kids that'd be arrested.
Well, our neighbor just sits there and does nothing all day when my dad works because he gets free government money.
Is it free?
Yeah, he gets it free. He gets it free.
He didn't have to do anything for it?
Nope.
Not even be alive?
Just be alive.
Do you know everything about him?
Yes.
Everything.
Mhm.
So you don't believe in helping people who can't help themselves?
Oh, he could.
You're using one example though. Let's forget your neighbor. Okay? Let's think about people across the country who can't help themselves. Don't give them anything.
Well, there's plenty of jobs out there nowadays.
But what if you can't do the job? I'm missing an arm. Well, I can't do certain things. Should I get free money?
Well, only people who can't do it.
Well, who gets to define that? Who gets to define me or you? Get to define you do? You get the power? I don't blame you. I'd like that power too. But so it's a tough decision. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but you got to understand. Not everybody. Sometimes you think people are getting free money and they're not necessarily.
Well, he
getting
was
free
at
money.
a job and he quit.
Yeah, well, nothing wrong. There's not a law against quitting jobs.
No, I think he might have got fired.
Not a law against getting fired.
I don't know. Well, you can ask her.
No, she's a not. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
And I think your mom would agree with me. I want your opinion
Why?
because you're the one that spoke out, which I enjoy. Speak out. That's what I want you to do. Okay. Is it okay that people lay at home and get no money? It's your opinion. I will not go too far in arguing.
I don't think it's okay.
You don't think it's okay?
No.
So you hate poor people too.
No, I don't hate poor people.
I don't hate poor people.
And you weren't here last week. I will argue with you no matter what you tell me. If you told me it was okay, I would argue the opposite. So don't take it personally. Is it? How many of you think you should have to have a job?
You don't have a job, Mom.
She's a mother. Whoa! So being a mom and a parent is a full-time job?
Well, it is. Not really.
Wow. We'll only have 2 children next week. So anyway.
It's also a teacher. That's
But-
a job.
You gotta understand, there's a lot of, it is a fine line when you're talking about helping people against people who can't help themselves. Okay? But again, who gets to make that decision?
The government.
Unfortunately, the government. Okay? And the government has certain criteria, right? That says, if you reach this, like my arm, for instance. They look at my arm and they go, okay, you're 19 years old when you lost it. There's a sliding scale. Here's your percentage of disability. That's what you are. Okay? Is that fair? Does that mean, let's say they said I was 90% disabled because of my arm.
That's not fair.
Why? I'm okay with getting free money.
Because you could
No, I cannot.
Yes, you can. I've seen you. You can write.
Barely. It's chicken scratch.
Well, you could be a history teacher.
I could, but what if I'm not smart enough to be a history teacher? I mean, there's been a lot of students that have told me this.
Well, you could be a computer guy.
What if I'm not smart enough to be? You're assuming I'm smart.
Well, you can history.
You are pretty smart.
On some things.
Every
But again, you've got to be careful. Like I said, you've got to be careful because somebody's got to make that decision. And if you're making a decision, how many millions of people are in the United States? I don't even know.
No.
But I'm just saying, there's
320 million.
yeah, something like that. But out of that, you got to make a determination for 220. Does that mean that some people are going to slip through the cracks that could work? That's not absolutely. Is there some people who are working that probably don't need to be working? Absolutely. Okay, absolutely. My dad worked every day of his life till he had a heart attack and couldn't work anymore. If you just looked at him, you would think, what's wrong with him? He could work, but he couldn't because of his heart. Okay, but they would not give him the help he needed because he worked, so it's tough at the same time. And you got people, like you said, who hasn't worked that get everything, or you think they have everything.
Well, they get their child everything he wants.
Oh, so now we get to the truth of it. If your mom and dad would just give you everything you want.
He copies everything I get. He copies it.
It's fine, that's fine. I get it. Right? We don't get jealous, do we? Ever.
No.
Alright. So, let's see. How old do you have to be in the Senate? 30. In the House?
25.
25. How long do you have to be a citizen in the House?
9.
In the House. Remember, it goes up. So the House is the lowest, Senate, so 7, 9. So always start at the lowest, 7. Okay? How long do you have to reside in the United States to be a member of Wisconsin City Council? None. Doesn't matter. 9 years. Okay? So, that is the legislative branch. And like I said, this is a very, very quick overview. This is not going in depth to what the powers of the House are. Like I said, if we want to do an in-depth one on the Constitution later, I have no problem doing that. But right now, this is just getting you the information. Yes, sir.
Are those just names or things we're going to go over?
All those things written down are things we will go over. You talking about this?
Yes.
Yes. So again, why did they put the legislative branch first? Congress. Why did they put them first?
Because they can speak up for the state.
No, what did we talk about? We just talked about why they didn't do the presidency or the executive branch
Because
first.
then they could become like how King George was.
They have a bad taste in their mouth from the way the king ran things. You've got to understand, and remember, like I tell you, you don't go from A to Z without filling in all the blanks, right? We don't wake up one morning and go, hey, let's revolt. We don't wake up one morning and say, and to use your example, they're lazy people who are getting money here, okay? We don't wake up, right? It's like, over years you see it, and then you're like, okay, well, this has got to stop. So all those things came in. Remember, all these things that happened during the Revolutionary War and prior to the Revolutionary War influenced the Constitution. Okay? All right, Article 2. Is the executive branch. Oh, let me backtrack one. The purpose of the legislative branch is to make laws. Okay? Their entire purpose is to make laws. The purpose of the executive branch or the presidency is to enforce laws. Okay? Legislator creates, executive enforces. Okay? So those are the two things that they do. Presidents serve for 4 years.
If they get reelected, they can go up to 8.
4 years, which is 2 terms.
Except the ones who got 12.
We'll get into that in a minute. So a president is elected for 4 years. When they are elected for a 4-year term. They can be elected for 2 terms or a maximum of 10 years. How can you get 10 years? Anybody want to guess?
You can go to the other party.
Nope.
What'd you say?
He can be elected, he or she can be elected for 2 terms, which would be 8 years, or a maximum of 10 years.
You could do 5 years and 5.
No, that's still more than 2 terms.
2 extra years.
Are we talking about the president?
Yes.
Just check.
Do you want to, would you like to answer, or?
I don't need to, the kids can.
Don't know it, no?
No, I do. I picked up a few things
You
here
just
and there.
repeat, yeah, you just repeat the question real quick.
Okay, a president is elected for 4 years. When Biden was elected, he is elected for 4 years. He can serve 2 terms or a maximum of 10 years.
Steve's answered the question on your stream.
Is he?
Yes. He says that they would have to finish out the previous president's last 2 years. So if Biden were to resign or something were to happen to him, Mrs. Harris would then fill the role of presidency for Biden's remaining 2 years.
Then she could still be elected twice.
I have a
For 2
question.
terms.
Would she still be considered the president? Or
She would for
become
those
the
last 2.
president.
Now, she couldn't take over. If Biden resigned in year 1, she can't finish out 3 years and then do 2 terms because that's 11 years. She can't do that. So it's a fine line. Okay? President must be 35. So the president must be at least 35 years old, must be a natural born citizen, which means what?
He was born in the U.S.
Must, or what if they were, and hold on, I'll say this for a minute. And they have to reside in the U.S. for how many consecutive years? It's up there.
10.
14? I just said 14.
Try this again.
I just said 14.
Okay, 14. So they must reside in here for 14 years. Now, what happened when, I cannot remember his name. I'm going to go out on a limb and probably be wrong on this. But I'm going to say Zachary Taylor. Zachary Taylor was president of the United States prior to the Civil War. But he was born in Texas. What is the problem with this scenario?
Texas wasn't a state.
Texas was not part
It
of
was
the
a part.
United States
It
yet.
was wasn't it its own country?
It was part of Mexico. And then it becomes the Republic of Texas, and then it becomes a state, yes. What happens if you are in a military base overseas and you have a child in, let's say, Germany? Are they a natural born citizen?
No. Yes, they did.
I heard no and yes out of the same
Yes.
answer. That's impressive. Yes or no? If they are in a military base overseas, let's just say you're on vacation in Italy, and your wife gives birth, are you a natural born citizen? Why?
Because you're still a citizen of the United
Because
States.
your
you just
parents
moved
are
to the
citizens of the
country.
United States, which gives you automatic citizenship. And plus, if you're on a military base, the military base is considered part of that country. Okay. What numbered president are we on?
46.
46. Biden is the 46th president of the United States. How many presidents have been sworn into office?
45th?
2.
No. They've all been sworn into office.
46.
No. You think it would be that obvious?
45.
45. And we'll get into that in a little while later.
45.
Yeah, 45 presidents have been sworn into office, but there have been 46 presidents. And I'll ask it in a minute. It'll kind of clear
Doesn't make
itself up.
sense.
It will. Trust me. Trust me. Presidents are elected through what is called the Electoral College.
Is it a
Okay.
college?
An electoral college. It's a group of people who cast their votes and basically give the president their way.
So would we, so like when you vote or something? Or what?
There are 538 electoral votes across the United States. You need 270 electoral votes to become president. Anybody have any guess where the 538 comes from? I know it's a guess.
The state.
You're close. You're close.
Representatives?
You're close. But how many representatives are there? How many House member representatives are there?
100?
No.
8.
House of Representatives, 435. That does not add up to 538.
Is it 538?
All right, so this, and my math is backwards. $435 comes from where?
The House of Representatives.
The House of Representatives. The 100 comes from
The Senate.
the Senate. Where's the 3 come from?
Senate? Washington, D.C.
Right. So that's where you come up with the 538. So how many electoral votes does the state of Wisconsin have?
8.
Nope. You're close. You're on the right track. 10. Why 10?
Just guessed it.
No, you're right. Good guess. Why 10? Because you said it too. Well, we've got 8.
Oh, Senate.
Right? Got 8 plus 2. So what is the least number of electoral votes a state can have?
2.
Not 2,
3.
3. Right? Because you're guaranteed 2 senators, right? And you're guaranteed at least 1 member of the House of Representatives. So you are guaranteed at least 3 electoral votes no matter which state you are. Okay? Why Washington, D.C.? It's not anything to do with Washington, D.C. Quickly.
Because it's the capital.
It is the capital, and it goes back to the fact that, what was the big catchphrase about taxation against England?
I'm not saying
Taxation without representation. Washington, D.C. felt the same way. They still feel the same way. They feel because they do not send any elected officials to the Senate or the House, and they feel like they're the same way. Do they have an argument?
no.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. But that's for a different story. So, so let's say this too. So if What state would have the most electoral votes?
California.
California, right? They're gonna have 53 plus 2, which is 55. Then I believe it's New York, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, Pennsylvania,
Where are we out of the 50?
probably down at the lower one. So how do I want to phrase this? So if you have an election, you have, when we all go vote, well, when the older individuals go vote, we go vote for the president, and we all cast our votes, all based on a popular vote, right? Whoever wins. So let's say, did Biden win or lose Wisconsin, barring other opinions? Biden technically won. So Biden is going to get a percentage of the 10, or is he getting all 10? All 10. It's all or nothing. Okay, I think there's only one state, and I think that's Nebraska, that splits them. So each state, when you elect a president, you're having 50 mini elections. Okay? Each state is doing its own election. And all of those electoral votes are going to one person or another. And you have to come up with 270 votes to be president. Why is that important? Why should you not just do a completely popular vote? Yes, sir.
Because popularity isn't everything.
Yeah, but that's not a good enough reason to not do it for a president.
Well,
Shouldn't it be that we are a democracy and whoever wins the most votes wins?
Yeah.
Let me put it this way, has there ever been a time when a president has lost the popular vote but won the election?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah.
How is that fair? More people voted against this individual than for them, and you think they should be president?
I don't know.
You did a while ago, you're pretty sure.
I don't know.
Fair, unfair?
I don't know.
Unfair.
Unfair. Why? Unfair is not a good enough reason.
Because I don't know.
Good job. Honesty works sometimes.
Where's she going?
She's had enough of you. The reason it is important that it is done this way and not straight on the popular vote, my opinion, you could win. You could win LA, San Francisco, New York City, Dallas, Austin, Chicago, and you could lose every other vote across the country. You could win the 10 major cities and win the election if it was just based off of a popular vote. Right? You could win the biggest cities, and does that represent the entire United States?
No.
No. Are there different values in Chilton compared to Madison?
Yeah.
Right? There are different values between New York and Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, if you did just straight popular vote, you could win the top 10, top 12 cities in population across the U.S. and become president. So the founders were geniuses. Okay? And how many presidents would come and visit Wisconsin if it was just straight popular vote? Where would you go visit? Where would you go campaign at? What would you promise? If you were campaigning and you were promising stuff, would you come to Wisconsin or would you go to California?
California.
Would you ever see a president come to Wisconsin?
No.
No, because you'd go to California, you'd go to New York, you'd go to Florida, you'd go to Texas, and who cares about Wyoming? But what happens when it's closed? Now, all of a sudden, Wyoming's 3 electoral college votes are extremely important, right? We don't forget about Wyoming, we don't forget about Oklahoma, we don't forget about Wisconsin, right? So, to put this in and have the foresight to understand that is genius. I mean, you're talking 1791, 1891, 1991, 230 years. That's pretty impressive. To have the Constitution exist for 230 years, to have one document that has run this country from that time to this time is extremely impressive. When you go through country by country, I think I read somewhere that North or South Korea has had 59 constitutions in the same amount of
Oh my
time.
goodness.
And the number may not be exactly right, but it's close. That the other countries have went through documents after documents after documents, and these gentlemen put this together, and it is still one of the greatest documents ever written. I mean, the way they were profound in the things that they saw and the things that they had come was very impressive. All right, now I have a few things here that you can go home and stump your parents on.
And I don't think I'll stump my dad.
Oh, I bet you can. I bet I've got some in here that you could stump your dad, but tell me next week. Okay? All right. Let me make sure. Who served, and you cannot answer this one.
Me?
Nope, you cannot. Who served the longest term as president? No cheating. Who served the longest term?
I think it was one of the Roosevelts.
It is one of the Roosevelts, but which one? Franklin or Theodore? And they're not chipmunks.
Franklin.
Franklin is the one, FDR. FDR served for how many years, Elijah?
Wow.
He was elected for how many terms of office?
3.
3. 4. I think he's actually elected for 4, but he served 3.5. Okay. So he will die. What was his claim to fame? What did he lead the U.S. through? Not the Revolutionary War.
Award.
Which one?
The Civil
1 or 2?
2.
2. World War II. Getting old. Oldest elected president?
Biden.
Biden. Just by a little bit. He beat out Reagan.
How old is he?
800.
70 something.
I can see him being
70 something. Youngest elected president.
Kennedy?
Kennedy. Youngest president. Youngest elected president was Kennedy, who is the youngest president. It's also one of the chipmunks.
Theodore.
Theodore Roosevelt is the youngest president. Kennedy is the youngest elected. How did that happen?
He woke up one day as president.
He did not. Well, kind of.
Because Kennedy got shot.
No, but Kennedy is a different story. We're talking about Roosevelt. How did Roosevelt become? Because McKinley got shot.
Oh.
We'll get to
Well,
that.
so
But you can't
he
answer
was
that question
elected.
either. Let's see. 4 presidents to be assassinated, and you cannot answer.
No, please.
Give me one. John F. Kennedy.
Lincoln?
Abraham Lincoln. Really likes this cat really loves lasagna.
That's before their time.
Garfield. And no, last one.
I don't know. I only know 3.
McKinley. McKinley is the last. We've also had 4 presidents to die in office of natural causes. 4 presidents to die of natural causes. Give me one.
FDR.
FDR is 1. You have no idea, Brooklyn, but go ahead.
Being shot.
That is not a natural
That is not a
cause.
natural cause.
All right.
Did you lose it?
I did because I don't have my glasses on. All right, 4 that have died of natural causes is Kennedy, Roosevelt. Where did it go?
Last line.
Oh, thank you. William Henry Harris, Zachary Taylor, and Warren G. Harding. And of course, there are rumors that Warren G. Harding, he died on a boat trip, and a lot of people suspected that his wife poisoned him.
Why?
You'll understand when you get married.
Which one do you think is true?
No, but I mean, that is when you read some of the biographies and stuff, there are several people that think his wife poisoned him because I don't know, they just didn't get along. Crazy thing. How many presidents
was
have-
one of his kids?
Maybe. They weren't there though.
Yeah,
How many
but
presidents have been
about that.
impeached? Impeached just means charges to be brought against. How many?
Trump,
How many? How many total?
4,
No.
5,
One?
Nope.
No.
3. Trump?
mm-hmm.
Who's the other two?
What's impeachment?
It means they brought. So an impeachment trial is the House of Representatives has to come together and they hear the evidence that is brought against the president. Okay. Then they vote. They either vote to impeach him or not impeach him. And if it's just 51 votes to 49 or 50-50 in a tiebreaker, then the president is impeached. All that means is charges are brought against him. Then they make this big giant ceremony that they get up, they walk these charges of declaration over to the Senate. And in the Senate, the 100 senators act like a jury. Okay? So the House members are the defense attorney, or the prosecuting attorney, and whoever the president hires to represent him, represents him, and the chief justice acts like the judge, and then they hear the case, and then they decide whether or not to remove the president from office. It is to be high crimes, treason, or misdemeanors. No, treason, high crimes, or misdemeanors are things that are impeachable offenses. Name me one. Trump. And why was Trump impeached?
Because the Democrats didn't like him.
As much as I want to say yes,
It is
it
true.
was more than that.
It was Biden.
It was not Biden. Okay. You have to also take personal feeling out of it. Okay. And you may be absolutely 100% right that they impeached him because they did not like him. But what were the charges? Anyone remember?
Him being kicked out of office.
No.
January 6th.
No. It had to do with the phone call with the Ukrainian president where he supposedly asked for favors and just politically motivated, absolutely. But all 3 of the impeachments were politically motivated. Okay. Second one was who?
Ronald Reagan.
No, Reagan was not.
Ooh,
Eisenhower?
Nope.
JFK.
Nope.
Bush.
Just stop.
Bush's
You're killing
son.
me. You're my son and you're killing me. Clinton.
Thought about it.
Clinton. I
Bill
was about to
Clinton.
say it.
Bill Clinton was impeached on charges of perjury. And what is perjury?
Stealing.
Perjury means you were sworn into an oath of office, you take the stand, and they ask you a question, and you do what?
Break it.
Tell the truth.
No, it's not telling the truth.
Lie.
Lying. You lie under oath, and that's what Clinton was charged with doing.
Are we sure his wife didn't do that?
Don't get me started.
I did not.
Well, she more than likely did.
And I will tell you this, when I was alive, during that time, when the impeachment was going on with Bill Clinton, I was 100% confident that he should have been removed from office. But the older I get, and the more I look back on it, I think it was 100% political. Okay? But when I was going through it and I was through it, I'm like, yep. And there are people sitting in jail who committed perjury today. Okay? But I still believe it was political. After growing up and taking emotion out of it. Okay? And that's the hardest thing to do. You cannot look at something with your feelings. Okay? And it's very difficult to do because feelings are very, very powerful, right? I'm mad and I want justice now, right? You have got to be able to take that out of it and really rationally think it through and be objective. Because what happens is you start to say, well, this is not okay because it's a Republican, and this is fine because it's a Democrat. It's either right or it's wrong, okay? And I don't care which, and that's the hardest thing to do because you have a political belief system and you have a side that you believe in and you want to just basically say, no, my way. So you've got to be able to say, okay, if wrong is wrong, then wrong is wrong. I don't care what side does it. Okay? And that's the hardest thing to do because you're very upset and you want to be upset. So, and the last one was Andrew Johnson during the Civil War, and that's after Lincoln was assassinated.
Andrew Johnson.
Andrew Johnson became president after Lincoln. And they basically told him that he could not remove Lincoln's cabinet members without the Senate's approval, and he did it anyway. So all three impeachments were extremely political. All three of them. Yes, ma'am.
Which one was the Watergate affair?
Watergate was Nixon, which we're getting ready to get to.
Okay.
Who was the one after Lincoln?
Johnson.
I think it's Andrew Jackson.
Was Andrew Johnson away to Ron Johnson?
No. No, maybe years and years back. I don't know. So let's see. So those four, the four natural causes. How many presidents have been removed from office?
1.
No.
0.
0. No presidents have ever been removed from office.
Why would they be removed? I'm just asking.
Because Nixon supposedly was involved in a break-in to find information. What will Nixon do that is the only president to have ever done this? He's the only president he wasn't removed.
I'm just asking, who's Nixon?
Richard Nixon. Before your time. Before my time. He did lie, supposedly, that he didn't know it. He resigned. He's the only president to resign from office.
Why?
Because the pressure, and he had some information about Watergate that he wasn't necessarily truthful about.
Watergate.
Watergate is where they break into the Democrat headquarters. I don't even remember what city it's in. And they find out political information on their opponents to use against them. And Nixon supposedly didn't have anything to do with it. Whether he did or not, I don't know.
Did he never get to become president, or did
He was president, but he resigned because of the Watergate scandal. Who served the shortest term as president? Trying to look.
John F. Kennedy?
John F. Kennedy was not. He did about 2 years. This person will do 31 days.
Abraham Lincoln?
No, he did about 2. He did a full term and part of it. You have no idea, but let's hear
Is
it.
it George Washington?
It is not.
The guy who resigned?
William Henry Harrison
Why?
served for 31 days because when he did his, see, when you're elected, you do your inauguration speech, you get to go out and stand in front of all these people and tell them what a great person you are. Well, he did it in torrential rains and cold weather, caught the flu, got pneumonia, and passed away in 31 days.
That's sad.
Only president, let me make sure I get him right
Did his
here.
wife become president? or-
No.
Hey, who did?
Only, after him, I don't remember who it was, actually. I could lie to you, but I don't know. Only president to serve one term, be elected out of office, and come back and win the next one.
Cleveland?
Cleveland. Grover. So, those are all little things. You can go home and see if you can get your dad on. See if you can get the 4 assassinated ones. See if you can get the 4 that died in office. Shortest term, longest term. He'll probably know the longest term.
That's the other 4 impeached one.
Impeach 3. Nixon, Andrew Johnson, Bill Clinton, and Trump. Alright. How many electoral votes does it take to become president?
270.
Very good. I almost said no, but you're right. How many total?
537?
538. How did she come up with the number 538? What 3 things do you add together?
Senate,
Senate?
House of Representatives, and Washington.
Okay, now expand on that. There are how many in the House?
100.
435 in the House. How many in the Senate?
37.
100. Good job. And last, how many is Washington, D.C.?
3.
3. You add those 3 together. That's how you get the electoral votes. Okay? All right. Let's get through Article 3. Article 3 creates the courts, or creates the federal court system. Does not create the that bad?
Nope.
Not the first child that's yawned in my class. Legislative branch. So the legislative branch creates laws, the executive branch enforces laws. What does the judicial branch do?
Interpret.
Interprets laws. Legislative again. Interprets. Okay. Highest court in the land. After you reach this court, there's no going back, is what?
Supreme
The
Court.
Supreme Court. How many people are there on the Supreme Court? Can you not count? We kind of went in order.
24. Wait, no, 27.
How many?
I know.
How many? 9. Very good. You're so quiet over there, just taking it all in.
What is 9?
9. So this is one of the most divided areas in the country. Because when you look at it, the C is for conservative. They're conservative justices. They usually follow a strict interpretation of the laws. Okay? The R means he's retiring. It'll be one of the biggest election issues.
What is the question with me?
I'm getting to it. Thank you for stealing my thunder. So he's retiring. It's going to be one of the biggest.
You're able to retire from the Supreme
Yes.
Court?
Yep.
I thought you had to die.
No, they know.
They prefer that.
They just hang on because it is a very, very powerful position. If you want, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, you take it for what it's worth, those 9 people are far more powerful than any 9 people in this country, presidents included.
Could you just work one day and say you don't like it and say you're retiring?
Why would you want to do that? I'll get to that later. Anyway, so if there's an L, they are more left-leaning judges, and they just basically kind of, everything has its own feel to it. Every court case is kind of, hey, let me just see what I think. Let me pull things in. Are you supposed to use European law to solve U.S. cases?
No.
No, you're not. But that's what a lot of them want to do. They want to bring in more of a worldwide view instead of a U.S. view. Okay? The one with the question mark, Judge John Roberts. John Roberts is the Chief Justice of the United States, which means he is considered the top judge. Not because he's any smarter, not because he's any great litigator. It's just because of the position he has. He was a conservative judge at one time, but since he's come on the court, he kind of goes both ways. He kind of sometimes votes conservative, sometimes votes more left-leaning. So these 9 individuals will decide what is constitutional and what is not constitutional. Okay? So they have more power. Can you put that bit back on, please? They have more power than just about anyone in this country. Okay? They are supposed to not be political, but it's becoming more and more of a political thing. They are not supposed to, you should basically see 9 individuals and not have any idea what they think. But that's not the case anymore. And understand, if you want to read a good book, if you want to read a really good book about the Supreme Court, read Mark Levin's Men in Black. He goes through the history of the Supreme Court and talks about the nuts that have been on the Supreme Court. I mean, just out and out crazy people. Okay. You just got to read it. There's a bunch. I'll go through a couple of them here in a minute when we do court cases. Okay? So when you are elected as a federal judge, you are on there for a term of life or good behavior. Which means if I elected you, if I nominated you as a federal judge, You go through the Senate process, they confirm you, you get put on not the Supreme Court, but any federal court, you are on there for life, as long as you don't do anything corrupt.
Or you want to retire?
Life, or if you retire. But you cannot be removed because you've made a bad decision in a court case. Okay? Now, if you got local judges could be removed because they're state judges, they're not federal. Any federal judge is on there for as long as they want to be on there, as long as they don't do anything corrupt. Yes, sir.
How do you get on the Supreme Court?
Really, it used to be you had to be a pretty intelligent lawyer or judge at one time, but it's become a lot watered down over the years, in my opinion, and a lot of it is your belief system on a lot. Should a judge have a belief system going in that if I think this, I don't believe that X is true? Should they believe that as a judge going in? No, because every case is different, right? But now it's becoming a kind of a case that you have to believe X before I will let you on the court, which is not good. Okay. And I just wrote down a couple of court cases to discuss. When you look at people who say, and they're really using Roe versus Wade and the right to abortion today. They're saying that precedent, which is when a court makes a decision. When the court makes a decision, that's considered precedent, and that's what it should be. And they say that there's a precedent for Roe versus Wade, and that it should never be changed because of the precedent. Right? Well, I'm going to give you some examples of why that's just not true. Okay? Because if we did that, all these court cases up here set some type of precedent. Okay? They set some type of legal argument that says this is the way things should be. And without being able to go back and revisit it in the courts, then all of these things would still be law. Okay? Mm-hmm. The first one is Marbury versus Madison. This is in the 1800s. It's not necessarily a case that is very political, but this case is where the Supreme Court gets its power. In this case, the Supreme Court itself will rule that they are the final authority on constitutional matters. So Marbury versus Madison, pretty nice, right? That would be like you going home and being the final decision on whether or not you're in trouble. Or the final decision on whether or not you get a raise. Yeah. Right, what are you going to do? No, I'm not in trouble. So the court takes this case and they're going through it, and at the end of the case they say, not only is this case settled this way, we are now also going to input that we are the final authority in dealing with all court cases. It was not in the Constitution. It was done by them. And the executive and the legislative branch let it happen, and it's just increased over time, and the power of the courts are crazy. The biggest thing a president can do is put someone on the Supreme Court that will be there for 30 years. Okay? Kavanaugh, Bennett, Gorsuch are all relatively new to the courts. They'll be there for 20, 25 years. Roberts is pretty young. He'll be there for a while. Alito is young. Breyer's kind of old. Sotomayor, Kagan are also young for the most part. For judges, probably in their 60s. I think, was it Ruth Bader Ginsburg was in her 90s when she passed away? Still very sharp. And you know the funny thing is, her and, what is his name? I cannot remember his name now, but he was a very conservative judge. She was an extremely liberal judge, and they were best friends. So, do not just dislike somebody because they don't believe what you believe. Okay? I've had good friends that did not believe what I believed. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay not to dislike and hate somebody because they don't believe everything you believe. It'd be a very boring world if everyone believed what I believed. Okay? Dred Scott. The Dred Scott decision is one of those that deals with the case of slavery. Dred Scott was a slave that was in a slave state, traveled with his owner into Wisconsin, and claimed that he was free once he was here because Wisconsin was a free state. The court said, no, that is not true. And not only is that not true, Slaves are just property and have no right to sue. So should that case ever have not been able to be reviewed? Because if you're just a slave and you're just property, what rights do you have? None. Right? So when you hear someone say that we shouldn't be able to review or hear other court cases, then that one, right? Plessy versus Ferguson will establish the separate but equal doctrine. This also deals with slavery. That means that as long as black individuals had access to the same thing, they weren't allowed to be in the white part of it. So like, let's say, the restrooms. As long as there was a separate bathroom for blacks and a separate one for white, it was okay. Now, you couldn't, if there wasn't a separate one for blacks, then you couldn't do it. Fair? No. But again, if we cannot change precedent, we could never go back and change this. Okay? Korematsu versus the United States, 1940s. This is when Roosevelt, during World War II, will round up all of the Japanese Americans and put them in internment camps. He will say because they are a threat to national security during World War II. Why would he say they were a threat to national security during World War II?
Because Pearl Harbor was bombed
By the Japanese. But we didn't do it to German Americans. Why did we not do it to German Americans? Hitler was there, and there was a lot of sympathy for Germany here.
Because Hitler didn't attack.
No, but he was running rampant through Europe. He was killing millions of Jews.
But they didn't want to stay. America didn't want to go to war.
To some degree. That's kind of, we could argue that, but I don't have time. I like to argue, if you didn't know. And what was really sad is a lot of these individuals had some of the best property on the coast of San Francisco, and they were told you have 24 hours to sell your land, or we'll just seize it. Do you think they got good prices for that land?
No.
No. I'll wait 25 hours and buy it at auction. Right? Brown versus Board of Education. This one will basically reverse Plessy versus Ferguson. So here's a case again that is reversing precedent of a previous case, and it basically said you have to have equal things for people and everyone has access. There is no, you can have this section, us have this section. Okay, so Brown versus Board of Education was one that did that. Gideon versus Wainwright will be one that establishes that you do have a right to a lawyer. It says it in the Sixth Amendment, but until the courts actually enforce it, like you were entitled to a lawyer if you were in the death penalty, in a case involving the death penalty. If it was just a felony case, you did not have the right to a lawyer. That case will give you right to a lawyer. And the last one, Miranda versus Arizona.
Who's Miranda?
You should know this.
I don't.
Your dad will be very disappointed. And you'll be disappointed when I explain it. Miranda versus Arizona. What are you read before you are arrested?
What?
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That was established in the Miranda case. That is known as your Miranda rights.
So when you're getting arrested, just keep your
Because that was the state it was in. So you can tell your dad, now you know where the Miranda rights come from today. You can say, I've learned this today. Or not.
So basically, when you're getting arrested, just keep your mouth shut.
Don't get arrested. That would be my advice first. Okay? All right, I got 3 more real quick to get through. Full faith credit is the 4th article. The 4th, and it's just basically if you are married in California and you move to Wisconsin, are you still married?
Yes.
Yes, it's just all laws, all ceremonies, all actions are recognized from one state to the next. Now, the problem with this is what? If you are... Do I want to do this or not?
Yes.
You can get me in trouble.
I won't.
If you are a polygamist, which means you have more than one wife, If you are married to 4 women in California, should you be allowed to be married to 4 women in Wisconsin if you move here?
No.
Why? You said it was okay for one man to be married to them and move here. First of all, never be stupid enough to marry 4.
Some people can hardly handle one. Like Dad said.
Look,
Yeah.
ahead of
From
his
Dad.
time.
But it goes to other things. So, and I said it, and I said, hold on one second, okay, let me get this done. I've said this before. Do New York values and California values match
No.
the Fox Valley? No. So, but if we saying that what happens in California is legal and okay in California and they come here, why not? So, do things that happen way away from here affect Little Chilton? Absolutely. So when you read that, oh, so-and-so in California is doing this, that's just crazy, but it'll never happen here. Everything happens on the coasts and comes inward. Everything. So don't think just because it's not going on here right now that it won't happen, because it's coming. Yes, sir.
This is for the things that are, if they all die in the same month and they have the funeral on the same day, that would suck too.
I don't have any idea where that came from, but thank you. All right, 5, amending the Constitution. How many amendments were originally in the Constitution? Not 27.
10.
10. There were only 10 original amendments in the Constitution. So we have amended the Constitution 17 times. Is it easy?
No.
Is it meant to be easy?
No.
If it was easy, they would have everything in there. To amend the Constitution, you have to have 2/3 of both houses of Congress. You have to have 2/3 of the Senate, 2/3 of the House, and you have to have 3/4 of all states agree to add something to the Constitution. It is extremely difficult, and it is meant to be extremely difficult. Can it be done?
I've done 17 times.
Now, remember the first question I asked, is the Constitution a living document that kind of flows with the times? Or is it something that is a standard document that can only be added to as you go?
Standard document.
And we'll get into that more when we do the rights and the amendments next week. Okay? But it is a tough question because there are things that occur over the time. Like the founding fathers had no idea there would be AK-47s. They had no idea that how easy is it to find news out? It's right there at your phone. You can find out anything you want. Or a computer if you don't have a phone, like some children are abused.
I'm abused too. I don't get a phone.
Oh, you know what?
We have let's start
Let's show some hands for parents who care that they don't have phones. You don't
Oh,
care
no,
that they
sorry.
have phones, that they don't have phones. Okay, I'll give you a half of one. That's it. You don't even get a full
I
hand.
thought you were going for the didn't care.
So it is difficult. There are things that happen that you do need to amend the Constitution. It is few. Okay, and like I said, we'll go through all 27 amendments next week. Supremacy, Article 6, the Supremacy Clause is just basically if federal law and state law conflict, federal law is supreme. That means if Wisconsin says you can't do this, we'll use marijuana for instance. Chicago, Washington, there's several states that have legalized marijuana. It is still illegal in the federal system, and as long as it's illegal in the federal system, it's illegal.
What's marijuana?
Whether or not it's just a drug. But when you do that, but if the states don't enforce it, a lot of times the federals will just look the other way. For instance, what is the standard speed limit on most roads? I'll get back to your question in a second. What?
45.
45, 55. Why do states follow that?
Because it sucks.
No, because the federal government says if you don't have a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, we won't give you money.
What if you're going under the speed limit?
You're fine. Question.
So, since marijuana is illegal federally, how can they legalize it in like different states like that?
As long as the states themselves don't enforce it.
Okay.
It's technically legal, but if the federal government wanted to come in and shut down the people who are growing it, they could do it at any time they wanted. but they don't really care. I mean, unfortunately. And last one, ratification. There were 13 original colonies. How many did we need to ratify the Constitution?
8.
No.
9.
9. What was the first?
Georgia.
No.
That was
First.
the last.
Oh, that was the last one.
First. Virginia. Last one.
New Hampshire.
No.
Rhode Island.
Rhode Island. The 9th one.
Georgia.
New Hampshire. Once New Hampshire ratifies the Constitution, it is the official document of the United States. Case
New Hampshire.
closed.
That's my first guess.
Yeah, on the last one. So, questions? Don't all jump at once. All right, next week we'll do all 27 amendments. I plan on getting all 27 amendments in. Okay? Next week will probably be the last week, just simply because we could do a quick review, but you will have already heard it. So, the 27 amendments, we will go through one by one. Some of them are not that important, some of them are. So, I mean, they're all very vital. But, any questions? Okay, good job. Good job. Go home and see if you can stump your parents.
I have a question.
I have an answer.
How do you stump your parents? If they already know it.
If they already know it, tip your hat to them and tell them what a genius they are.
I know.
I wouldn't quiz your mom. She may know it.
No, she was probably sleeping.
Thank you for coming, ladies. Thank you for coming, gentlemen. Thank you for telling me that